Well, I had said earlier in our queso blanco recipe that it was the easiest cheese you'll ever make. Well, I lied. Well, not lied. I told an unintentional inaccuracy. There's a cheese out there that is the easiest cheese in the world to make. And in fact, I'll bet most of you have made it at one point in your life. If you're like me and you have children, especially small boys, they make it on a regular basis. How many of you have ever found this sitting beside your sink? Boys, did you rinse your glass out last night? No, sir. Well, the next morning, their milk looks like this. It has separated. What's it separated into? I'm glad you asked. Curds and whey. As we discovered with the queso blanco recipe, when you add acid to milk, it causes the protein and the whey to separate out. Now last time, we used acid intentionally. We used vinegar. Well, the natural bacteria that's found in the air that loves milk produces lactic acid as a byproduct. So, this is a quart jar of milk. Came out of the cow yesterday. Wonderful stuff. This is a quart jar of milk came out of the cow about 3 weeks ago. Been sitting on the counter ever since. Believe it or not, this is cheese. The easiest cheese you'll ever make because you don't have to do anything to make it. All you have to do is ignore it. What kind of cheese is this? Well, it's cottage cheese. Cottage cheese, yes, of course. It's cottage cheese. Now, it's not going to look like the cottage cheese you have in the grocery store. It's not going to be those little tiny lumps, but it'll be cottage cheese nonetheless. Basically, what you do is you take milk straight out of the cow. We love our dough. Set it on the counter for about 3 to 4 days, and it will ripen, which means it will start to turn slightly. Now, why do we want it to turn slightly? Well, to give it some flavor. The queso blanco is great stuff, but putting it mildly, it's a mild cheese, to be generous, which is another way of saying it doesn't have a whole lot of flavor. It's the acid, it's the ripening, it's the bacteria, to be honest, that give cheese their flavor. So the longer you let it ripen, the more flavor you get. Of course, there's a cutting off point for everyone. But anyway, you take the cheese that your kids leave on the side of the sink overnight, you strain it, and you put it in the refrigerator, and you've got cottage cheese. It's just that simple. You're going to want to salt it at some point. Put it in the refrigerator, and then eat it and leave it. Now, it will continue to ripen, which is another way of saying it will continue to sour. It's going to be slowed down a lot in the refrigerator. It's not going to ripen nearly in the fridge like it would on the countertop. That's why you need to leave it on the countertop for 3 or 4 days. If you're going to do the same thing in the refrigerator, it'll take you, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks in order to turn into this in the refrigerator. Strain this, and we'll do this in just a minute. Strain this, put it in the refrigerator, salt it, and you've got cottage cheese for use in however you want to use it. If you're me, you like to bake with it, or rather you like to have your wife bake with it. It's great in lasagna, baked ziti. If you're my wife, you like to eat it straight like it is, with crackers and peaches, and sometimes pork and beans. Alright, well, we have our leftover milk. We're going to pour it into the colander that has those other 2 quarts of milk in them. Here's our cottage cheese. What you're going to want to do is hang this up and get most of the liquid out of it, or as much liquid as will come out of it. Hang it up for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. Now this right here, oh yeah, that's let's call that tangy. 3 to 4 weeks on the countertop is probably too long, but this is the same process you would do if you had left it on the countertop for 3 or 4 days. Pour it through, strain it, hang it up, and you'll have you some great cottage cheese. If you'll notice in here, the yellow bit, actually, that's the cream that's separated out. Now this is, right here, this white stuff, that's your cottage cheese. Now, of course, it's runnier than it would be, but after you strain it, it's going to look a lot like the cottage cheese you get in the store. The yellow stuff you see in here, that's the cream that actually separated out. So this is basically a layer of butter that was floating on top of the layer of cheese. Best thing to do, if you can't homogenize your cheese, or if you're not buying store-bought homogenized cheese, go ahead and skim the cream off before you do this process, because otherwise it'll be separated out, and there's no way to mix this and that back in. Anyway, cottage cheese, easiest cheese you'll ever make, because all you have to do is ignore it.